Right now, Michelle Bachmann is on her way out, but Ted Cruz is on his way up. Is the Tea Party's moment in the sun over, or is it really just beginning? And next, what is going on with Rutgers? They just can't seem to get it right. Newly leaked emails show they might have rushed to hire a new athletic director without fully vetting her. So what will finally stop the bleeding at Rutgers? And later, Surveillance Nation. How many times a day do you think your personal information is being recorded? Did you type something into Google today? Check. Did you drive through Easy Pass? Check. We'll show you just how often your habits and whereabouts are being tracked. Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Andrew Whitman in tonight for Richard French. Thanks so much for joining us on this Thursday evening, May the 30th. We begin tonight with the latest fork in the road for the Republican Party. That decision about what kind of party it wants to be really boiling down to a simple choice: tea or no tea. The New York State Republican Party seeming to vote tea last night, as even in the very blue Empire State, a state that, by the way, hasn't elected a Republican to anything more statewide since George Pataki's last election 11 years ago, Republicans flocked to hear Uber Tea Partier Ted Cruz very nicely talk about abolishing the IRS and abolishing Obamacare. But on the flip side, the New York Cruz came just one day after the leader of the House Tea Party caucus, Michelle Bachmann, announced she would not seek re-election next year. Bachmann insisting it was not because polls showed she could not win a re-election in a district she had won 4 times before, but let's be honest, it was really because polls showed she couldn't win re-election in a district that she had won 4 times before. But the real Bachmann legacy may have less to do with her popularity as it does with her complete ineffectiveness in Congress. Or as Politico put it yesterday, she is and was, quote, no force in Congress. Politico's point that beyond harping on spending and complaining about every breath President Obama takes, the Tea Party, for all its bluster, really hasn't accomplished anything, except purging the Republican Party of people who actually get work to get stuff done, and even some who didn't. We got moderates like Charlie Crist and Mike Castle, conservatives like Bob Bennett, and even people in between like Dick Lugar, all gone thanks to the Tea Party. And it's not just Bachmann. Wrote Politico, Michelle Bachmann's sudden fall exposes the reality of Tea Party players. Their power in Congress is mostly a mirage, and even Bob Dole, former war hero, Senate Majority Leader, former RNC chairman, and 1996 presidential nominee, thinks the Tea Party is forcing the GOP to jump the shark. Asked on Fox News if he could make it in today's GOP, Dole's answer: I doubt it, and neither would Richard Nixon or the modern saint of the GOP, Ronald Reagan. He wouldn't have made it either, because in Dole's words, they all had ideas. And the former RNC's chairman, his advice for the party's leadership: put a sign up saying closed for repairs and spend that time going over ideas and positive agendas. And joining us now to tell me why everything I just said is wrong, Dominic Carter, political journalist and author, and O'Brien Murray, Republican consultant who managed the campaign for former Congressman Bob Turner, among others. So,
Dominic's going to tell you that's wrong. This is great. I look forward to this one, Dominic.
Are we at another crossroads for the,
Did you
GOP?
write that?
I did.
That's great. It was very well written. I'm not going to say I agree with it, but I'm just your breadth of the use of the English language is quite amazing.
Thank you so much. So apparently I'm right about something, at least in the language. We've been talking about, whither the GOP and the crossroads for the party for some time now. Is this another turning point for the party, do you think?
There's a basic premise when these conversations take place anywhere in the country, on any TV station and radio show. The Republican Party has 3 people that are leading it. The minority leader in the Senate, the Speaker of the House, and the RNC chairman. In the Democratic Party, there's a president. They control the White House. When you control the White House, when your party controls the White House, you generally stay on message, and there's one person where the message comes down. So to sit here and say that the party doesn't have leadership, it's the same thing every party out of power when you've got 3 people in charge leading their members.
I think you're confusing party leadership with the direction of the party, and whether the party continues to go far right and elect Tea Party representatives, and particularly out of primaries, who then fare not nearly as well in the general election, versus picking. Well, and you've had a lot.
You mentioned the reason I asked who wrote that too. Don't forget when you mentioned in Florida, Marco Rubio won that one. So I'm not quite sure when you say the Tea Party did something. That's a good one. I mean, there are no question about it that any race is about 2 people, generally speaking, the Republican and Democrat, and you can't beat somebody with nobody. So when you look back at it, when you look at what's going on in Florida, Charlie Crist and what he was doing and where Marco Rubio was, that was an opportunity in an open seat to do something. And I would think that anybody in this room would say Marco Rubio has a great opportunity to be a great senator for Florida and for the United States.
Look, O'Brien is one of the best in the business when it comes to being a political consultant.
I wrote that too.
And in particular on the other side. But when he left out what he left out of the party leaders, what about Rush Limbaugh? I mean, they all bark and jump. Whenever Rush says do this, that's exactly what they do.
That's very.
And Rush is, and not my line, the line from that HBO special on Sarah Palin when the character McCain character said to Palin, "You're a leader of the party. Limbaugh and all the others, they'll take the party over the cliff." That's exactly what's happened, and that's what Bob Dole is talking about. Under Dole's day, Dole, Clinton, all the others, they work together, and that doesn't exist anymore.
Well, we've had that conversation in the set before. What you have in Washington today is different than it ever was before. You've got shorter news cycles. You've got divisive issues that come up, and then when people disagree, they don't go out at night afterwards. They go back to their districts.
And you got the nuts from the Tea Party.
But I won't grant you that one at this point. What I'm saying though too is when you get along with people, you spend more time with people. When you're in Washington on the weekends instead of back in your district, where you should be back in your district, but years ago, with transportation being what it was and the cost and the way the Congress was run, they didn't spend time to get to know each other and do things. So under Bob Dole's leadership, when he was majority leader, it was a different time in Washington.
But you also have the Tea Party influence pushing the Republican Party further to the right. There's no question it's cost the Republicans seats in the Senate and occasionally in the House. And you could make the argument that Mitt Romney wouldn't have, if he didn't have to move as far to the right in the primary process, he might have fared better against President Obama.
And there's mixing apples and oranges though here.
I am going to keep doing it because in 2016 there may be another opportunity or another litmus test for the party, and it's the governor of New Jersey, Chris Christie. And I'm curious if you agree with me that he may be this litmus test for the party. He certainly a popular, electable guy,
the party,
but he might not be conservative enough.
The party, first off, has a big tent. And you mentioned Bachmann and Cruz before. Here you have a man that's of Cuban descent, and you've got a woman. And you keep on saying the party shouldn't be a bunch of older white men. And here you have two people that weren't. They've got different views than a lot of the country, but they were represented by their people. And in Texas, Ted Cruz represents Texas, and Michelle Bachmann was reelected back there after numerous reelections, but when she had a knockdown, drag-out primary the first time she got elected. So politics is local. It comes back to that part of it. But when you look at the Tea Party, you can't sit here and make a blatant statement that across the country they're no good. We're sitting in New York. If you do the polls in New York, the Tea Party does not poll well. I'll grant you that. At the same time, these are men and women that volunteer, step up, and support candidates and make things happen. The question is, when they push people in New York, in this case, too far to the right where they can't get elected, that may be something. But at the same time, Bob Turner is pro-life. Bob Turner won in New York City as a pro-life candidate. It wasn't a topic of conversation, but it's what the man believed. Okay? So it's all a question of what dictates the discussion in any kind of race. And oftentimes the Tea Party comes out and does it. And in that race, Weprin kept on saying all kinds of things against the Tea Party. And he was bringing on the Democratic message and trying to attack us and link us to that.
The Republican Party will be much better off if they can get rid of the Tea Party, folks. Bottom line.
Just to win elections. I mean, even Karl Rove is saying that. I mean, last word.
Well, I am not going to sit here and say that anybody should be kicked out of the tent. That is not something that this party is about. This party is about including everybody and coming to common terms on who can be elected where is something that any party has a challenge doing.
But was Bachmann a net gain? I don't think so. I mean, I don't think so. I think at the end of the day, Michelle Bachmann did more harm to herself and to the party, and certainly to the other presidential candidates. I mean, you remember her, the virus and the connections that she made? I mean, she's out there.
Well, and she's going to be really out there.
Anybody that speaks up, and she was on Chris Matthews' show when I think she had an issue too, when she went off and said something. And people, when they go off on the fringe and they do that, that's going to be negative for any party, no matter what you're doing.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here on RFL. When we come back, we're going to talk about the New York City mayor's race and how stop and frisk will impact that very interesting battle in the city. Stay with us.